Hallå allihopa! Välkomna till ett till lördagsavsnitt. Är det så att ni hör mig så får man gärna frukta till i chatten på Twitch. Och man får naturligtvis gärna hoppa in i vår Discord-kanal och snacka. Idag har vi ju en väldigt speciell gäst med oss. Otto, har du kommit tillbaka här?
Yes, I am back and we shall start this episode in English.
Yes.
Because this is the second Pirate TV episode in English that we had. We had one ages ago with Julia Rida when she was currently MEP. And now we're here with another person, Mikuláš Peksa, also a MEP of the Czech Pirates. How are you and who are you?
How are you and who are you?
Yeah, how are you? Who are you?
Hello, guys. Really great to hear you and see you. I'm just an ordinary guy who somehow become a politician. I studied physics originally, and then somehow it happened that my party became a little bit more successful. We made it to the parliament, and later on I was elected to the European Parliament. I guess you know me. I was once in Sweden, and we met there. That's the wonderful opportunity. In the European Parliament, I'm kind of like co-responsible for the industrial policies as the member of the ITRE committee. I'm one of the 4 pirates being there. The others, there are some from Czechia as well, one from Germany, and we are trying to do some shit to get things better. Yeah.
Because as you say that one of the 4 pirates, because there are currently 3 Czech pirates and 1 German pirates, correct?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
I know for the other countries it is quite complicated because the thresholds and pirate parties fighting for some attention of the media and so on. So unfortunately, the others didn't make it. But I think we are doing quite some noise. We are being active in the discussion about terror regulation regarding a lot of privacy issues and so on. Even my colleague Marcel, he made it to be vice president of the European Parliament. So I think we are making some track.
And it's really interesting that you would say it like that, because I'll always used to repeat this, especially for our non-Pirate Party viewers, that the Pirate Party is not a Swedish or Czech or German or Icelandic movement. We are a European movement, and if a Czech pirate comes into the parliament, that's a win for the Swedish pirates. So it's really great to have a representation in the parliament from a pirate point of view. And I was gonna go straight into the one of the first topics that I would like to discuss. It is the European Green Deal. It's regarding the European Green Deal, which very shortened. The EU has decided that we should have a goal to be climate neutral to the year 2050 as a continent. Would that be a very correct way to summarize it?
Sorry, I didn't hear the last.
The EU has decided that we should have a goal to be climate neutral for the year 2050 as a continent. It's one of the ways to short it down. Is there something we can add to explain the European Deal?
Well, I think from where to start, some people, they still try to neglect the fact that we have a problem with climate. And the problem is that the Earth as such it's warming, and the problem it comes because of the greenhouse effect, the fact that we have a lot of CO2 in the atmosphere, which later on kind of results into keeping warm at Earth's surface. And that's why the decision is to lower the amount of CO2 we are producing, because in absolute terms, the mankind is actually producing something like 11 times more CO2 comparing what we have done during the First World War, which was quite big amount. Like at that time, everyone was using steam engines and traveled by a train and so on. So now we are really much bigger, and the discussion is how to decrease it. And quite obviously, it has to be tackling all the various sectors, like the transport industry, energy production. Everything has to be improved in order to decrease the amount of CO2 being produced, which is right now what is being discussed. Like quite often people ask, what is the Green Deal about? It's not just a single issue, because it's really touching every single activity people do in order to really like decrease the amount of CO2. So we will have various laws provided in this election term. There is a kind of like table describing what will come when, and these laws will kind of affect mostly everything. So we are discussing how to like improve the situation with heating of buildings and so on. So yeah, that's it, and it will be ongoing probably in the next 4 years, because it's quite important issue for the whole EU.
Yeah, I most hopefully so, because there is three discussion points which I have picked up from my research of this European Green Deal. Why did I write these notes in Swedish? It was so stupid. Energy, more energy efficient buildings, investments in new and environmental friendly techniques, and support to innovative industrials. And I would like to know if you have discussed hempcrete.
Well, usually it does not go to such a granularity. Like the approach is more like, let's look what is the amount of CO2 being produced, and let's look whether it decreases after applying the technology. And there is a quite like flexibility in order in the way how to do that. However, when we are talking about hemp, it's not really something that people would discuss in this context, and I think this may be maybe a little bit. We could improve on that, because actually one of the way how to kind of like reduce the CO2 being produced is to grow plants that use that CO2 for photosynthesis, because that actually decreases the amount of we are producing. That will be one of that are growing quite fast and have various possible usages. Like I know that people are doing making clothes out of that, furniture. Buildings. So this would be a way how to really store the carbon we are like overproducing in order to create something useful. And well, the whole system actually works that way, that we should provide sort of like loans to promote the sectors that are supportive to this transformation. And at that point, it's really like relevant, I think, to say, yeah, this production would be one of the sectors we should support.
Wow, you're a really nice guy to interview. All my follow-up questions, you keep answering them.
Yeah,
Sorry for being too talkative.
I have a question here regarding this as well that I find interesting, because in many countries, obviously, the old energy sector, they often kind of say that, they are, it's economical, it's viable, but the fact is that they have a lot of possibilities to get into markets and get support from nations that new energy sectors doesn't have. So the fact is they often don't really compete on an equal market. But what sort of pushbacks are you like experiencing while trying to transform this? Like what are the issues there that you see that are large, and how do you get these new like incentives out to these new companies, and how do you make them aware of what's happening as well? How close are you to the industry?
I think the biggest issue, especially in the countries of former Eastern Bloc, is to actually convince people that the energy production is something which should be decentralized, because people are quite often used to think that to produce energy, you should build a big power plant, most possibly subsidized by the state, and then in order to really like deliver energy to everyone. However, nowadays we are more or less living in the free market, so to say. So more or less everyone can be at same time producent, same time consumer for the energy, and it's becoming much more decentralized. Like actually, when you put a solar plant on your roof, you are becoming sort of like energy producer as well. And under the circumstances, it is I think somehow hard to explain to people that they should stop subsidizing big centralized projects, because quite often they still think about it like in the communist time, like there should be one big company subsidized by the state to ensure needs of everyone. But this is not the way how it works. And currently to really defeat this way of thinking is the biggest issue.
Because I know that in certain countries, I think in Sweden in particular, I'm sure people are going to correct me on this, but the problem is that we don't have a market that allows for decentralized production of power, which is a huge issue, and there's a lot of pushback on that. When the moment you go out and try to do something like this, there is a lot of entrenchment in the market. There is a lot of powerful players in the market, and it's kind of, you will see pushback on many very different levels to try to update this system. I also feel like the power grid in many countries has already been sold out, or isn't something that can be shared, available, or needs to be upgraded.
Yeah. Well, the country works that way, that there is a single state owned producer. Like in Czechia, it's the case, and like what we see is actually this company, which is by majority owned by the state, is kind of like lobbying the state back in order to ensure its interest, and it is really hard to somehow upgrade the system, because it is defending its own
interest,
survival.
Yeah, interesting. Back to you, Otto. Sorry for
no worries. I was
I'm so interested in that subject, actually.
Yeah, I was just answering the chat there because there is some sound issues on Mikuláš, and we are aware of that. Mikuláš is in Prague, and he's sending to Stockholm, and then from Stockholm out to you guys. So
we could actually see if we remove the video, the audio quality may improve. It's not sure, but I agree. I think we could try to prioritize audio before video if people have problems
try to turn off the camera then. So and we'll.
I will do. I will try to scream more loudly in my mic.
No, it's not your voice. It's the robot voice that comes with breaking up. But actually,
it sounds kind of piratey.
It sounds better by the first step. Before we forget the wonderful background of Mikuláš, I would like to give you a digital point on not having only a bunch of books behind you. It was actually board games. Loved it.
But yeah, board gamer.
Yeah, and also pirates.
I really like it, and that's somehow what brought me into politics. I like strategic games.
That's cool. No, because that's the theme I've seen a lot within the pirates. That we do board games, a lot of us, but with all the Zoom interviews and all the stuff that you're seeing on the web today, everybody has a giant bookshelf behind them with lots of interesting books. And you had board games, and I just want to say that I appreciate it, and I like it. But let's go in and talk a bit more about the current the corona situation, and not the fact that I am out of beer, but the virus. Well, just start open. How is the situation in Czech right
now? The situation? I guess you asked about the situation in the European Parliament, did you?
No. I actually asked about how are in in Czech? Because I've seen the numbers. Czech has been Czech has been handling this situation very good, according to the numbers I'm seeing.
Well, I guess it's maybe a little bit of luck, because what you see is that there is a clear division between Eastern and Western Europe in handling of the infection. For some reason, it looks that the Eastern countries are, in general, doing better. Quite some explanation. One of them was that actually Eastern countries used a special vaccination against tuberculosis. And accidentally, this type of vaccination is also providing certain resistance to COVID-19. So maybe this is the reason why, like, you see this difference, because quite like if you compare, for example, Poland and Germany, or Slovakia and Austria, there is a clearly difference. Like the countries behind the former Iron Curtain are better.
So you're saying the actual things that the government have put in place aren't very different, and the socio. The factors of the country itself, but it may be because of that tuberculosis shot.
I would say so. Like concerning the preparations for the pandemic, I think they were not really successful. Like at the beginning, the country had mostly no protective mask, no ventilators, respirators, nothing like that. So the health minister was kind of like assuring everyone, we are prepared. We weren't. And it caused quite a lot of public anger when the medical workers started complaining in social media that despite the prime minister is claiming they have the protective material, they had nothing. And that's why we have a lot of people being infected in the first line, like those serving in hospitals, other medical environment. So yeah, that's it. But I think this is the story which is more or less similar in many countries, because despite the fact that I've heard that EU was actually warning all the member states already in some January, no one was preparing. Then later on, a lot of countries started like rushing to buy some equipment from China. I know that something was bought in Czechia, in Netherlands, Spain. Well, like we were not really prepared.
No.
And at this point, I really have to complain, because those people who are like creating the EU, like writing the treaties and describing the conditions, they have said, pandemics are no issue for the EU. So when we are talking about like the level of preparedness, the EU is just like monitoring the situation.
Yeah.
But no one was really caring that we should have a sort of like storage for protective masks. So when there was the outbreak and Italians were quite like in troubles, we had effectively no like reserves to provide them, which I think is really a fault, and we should improve for the next time, because we should have a common storage to be able to help the country that will be next time first on the in line.
I mean, I agree. I feel, just out talking to people and doing this show, I feel like a lot of people is asking a little bit, where is EU? And it's a little bit hard to answer, obviously, because there hasn't been a lot of noise from EU. But you're saying here that originally there was really this wasn't something that the EU thought was kind of their responsibility. It was more on a national level that this should be handled.
Yeah, absolutely. It works that way. That if you look in the treaties, there is nothing about like the EU should do that. It was just like, when it came, everyone was asking what the EU does, and it was like, hey, you guys did not want us to do anything. So effectively, like we have seen some common procurement to buy medical equipment. Yeah. This happened in March. In March,
yeah, it's late.
Commission finally started by collectively the protective environment in order to be able to provide to Italy, for example.
Yeah.
This is a problem, but like, this is the same problem we have faced during the migration crisis and during the financial crisis. In the beginning, or before the crisis, people say this is not EU business.
Yeah.
When the crisis outbreaks, everyone starts asking why the EU does anything.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I understand. It's a tough mark. It's not only a problem of that. I mean, it becomes a communications issue. But a lot of people would probably, inherently expect EU to be the forum for this sort of bigger questions that we have to solve between the countries, right? Or we can't solve alone. So I can understand why, these big issues are often like EU gets blamed for. What do you like? What do you think that could be done better there?
Stop before Kringland. We have another question from the chat. Isn't the part of the issue that national governments around the EU has been very wary of stepping to a federal EU stepping towards a federal EU?
Yeah, that's the part of problem. Because like in every single EU country, you have people who are repeating and repeating, we should be scared of the EU being too powerful. When there is a crisis outbreak, they start screaming, why does the EU do anything? You guys forbid that. If you forbid that, it cannot happen. It's quite easy.
Yeah.
That's the problem we faced in all the crises in the last 12 years. The corona crisis is quite same. It's nothing new.
But one of the things I think there is that, these crises, if EU can help, it could get so much goodwill. In a way, I feel like focusing and being prepared for these type of things is exactly what would make people believe in it a lot. So it kind of ironic. It becomes a little bit of chicken and hen situation, or catch-22 situation, right? Where you're not really supposed to do it, you can't do it, and then you're always constantly expected to, and you have that kind of circle.
I would absolutely agree, but it is also I will just use this opportunity as a member of Budgetary Control Committee to a little bit speak about my stuff. EU has quite small budget. If you compare it with the member states, like budget of the EU is actually, I think, 10 times smaller comparing to budget of Germany alone. In absolute terms, the amount of money being distributed by the EU are quite small. Imagine when there is a discussion about should prepare for a sort of pandemic, it cannot really succeed, because when you are at very short amount of money, you really need to think about what are your priorities, and just preparing for a possible crisis you are not even supposed to prepare for on the table. You cannot convince people to do the preparation. Now we have a discussion about the budget for the EU for next 7 years, from 2021 until 2027, and well, we see the same discussion. Like the member states, they are all repeating, we will not give you more. At the same time, they want as much as possible into their own projects. Like,
yeah, of course.
Czechia, for example, is willing to get a lot of money for the cohesion funds, preferentially by our prime minister to his own pocket, or like his own businesses, because they are using that subsidies. This is not really the path forward.
No, that sounds quite. I mean, when we've been talking about before, there's been ideas of Corona bonds. There has been ideas of loans. But looking at this crisis, it's unique to every country. But it's got to be quite. I'm not sure if there has been a situation where every single EU country is suffering at the same time. And like, how is that affecting the discussions and the feelings in the parliament? And I mean, I kind of imagine quite a deadlock situation. Is there any way forward here where EU could play a role?
Well, it's not just a single national issue, because when you see your neighbor's economy to be collapsing, it's actually a problem for you. Like the member states, they are exporting a lot of goods to each other. So, like for Czechia, for example, would German economy collapse, or will crumble as well? Because I think 80% of Czech export is going to Germany. And let's say 1/3 of the economy is just like the export. So like, we need the whole continent to handle this crisis properly, because otherwise we will have another disease spreading from country to country, and that will be the economic decline. And like I think everyone is understanding that. However, we still see discussion between, let's say, southern and northern states, because just telegraphically, what is the problem of typical southern state like Italy or Spain? They have a debt, sovereign debt, the debt of the country, be quite comparable with their annual GDP. If you have a debt which is like 100% of GDP, let's say 10% of interest, pay just 10% annually of your GDP just to pay the interest.
Yeah.
This is not you cannot manage under such circumstances to repay the debts in any realistic time. So now the discussion is how to get those southern states, especially Italy, but also Spain, this is in huge troubles, out of this trap. Well, like countries who are not in this trap, which was mainly like Germany or Netherlands, they were not really understanding to the point, so they were quite like opposing the idea of like any sort of like debt sharing or anything like that.
So it's essentially, either trying to help these countries, and I mean this is not the first time, right? It's been like this for quite a long time, which may also be like part of the reason why people are, I guess, supposedly a little bit fed up with trying to help it. But and that kind of brings me to that sort of question, like, do you think there will there be, because one of the things is I feel like if we don't do anything, if there is nothing done here, if we can't cancel the debt, if we can't work together, then what would be the future of EU? Like, how do we, like, it's a kind of a big question. I'm just interested in that kind of big thinking, because essentially we have two options that neither one of them are good. Both are probably bad for economics. One is definitely going to fuel anger in the states that has money, and the other one is just probably even worse.
Okay, I will maybe answer first by statistics.
Yeah.
If you look like Eurostat, that's the statistical agency of the EU, they are doing sort of like investigation, and on a regular basis they are asking people, do you feel as a European citizen? And they record a percentage for each single EU country. If you look on the pattern, like the overall percentage increases by roughly 1% a year. People are in the long-term average coming more and more feeling, yeah, we are European citizens. That they feel it, it's fine. On the other hand, if you look in, and I would be now specific, some countries like Italy and maybe Greece, the people are quite dissatisfied with the way how the EU works. Especially Italy, like we have seen them to be quite like disappointed about the fact that they have been provided with no real support or very few support during the corona crisis. But it was even before there were this discussion about debts and so on, and they were also disappointed about the migration, so on. So I think would we not take care more about the situation in these countries, we could see a problem that they would be pushing for leaving the EU. That's what I would be at this point very specific. I'm very much concerned about Italy and partially also about the Greece, which we should care. And disclaimer: I'm not from Greece. I have nothing to do with Greece at all. Like, I have no relatives, business there. But I just think, for the sake of the EU, we should provide more support to these countries.
Because I feel like the general story, is always, when it comes to talking about this, is that sort of story, where when you talk to normal, they'll go like, why we're paying so much money to them because they don't fix their economy, yada yada yada, kind of that because I feel like that's a very simple message, but it's a message that kind of works and that kind of fuels that nationalistic kind of feeling and the sort of animosity towards EU as a project that is spreading a little bit. I think everyone would have to agree.
I would just remember what was previously said. Imagine that you are in the situation that your debts are so high that you cannot even pay the interest. Even if you would be the most productive, the best person all over the world, you are ranked on the moving stairs. You cannot run faster than what is possible in man's abilities. So at certain point, complaining will not help them because they are really trying to get better. However, the leverage they have is simply not suitable. We have over time not really tried to shorten the leverage to give them a chance to repay the debts and get out of this trap.
No, and I think that's a problem. And also, like, just for simplicity's sake here, I mean, it's so important to remember that it's a loan with interest, because sometimes it feels like the general idea of it when talking is either they just get money, they get bailed out, or they can do whatever they want, and then they get money for it. Yeah, just to bring it down to those very kind of simple terms. But Otto, I think it's so interesting to talk about. I actually wanted to kind of pivot to another thing a little bit, talking about EU. Yeah. How is life in now? You're in Prague right now, is that correct? Yeah. But how is the day-to-day work in the parliament? During the crisis, how is the coronavirus affecting the kind of day-to-day? How you handle things?
Well, it's completely like bragged, or not completely, but there are huge issues. Like, under normal circumstances, it works that way. If you are an MEP, like member of the European Parliament, you are supposed to meet people. Like, mostly your calendar is full of various meetings, because mostly everyone who has a business across Europe has sort of like representation in Brussels, trying to promote these particular businesses, whatever it is, like book publishers, internet platforms. Everyone is trying to influence the politics over there. So usually you get a lot of meetings, which is not possible under Corona crisis. The main reason is that meeting in person in Brussels is no longer possible. Each of the countries, they took a different approach to the crisis. So at the beginning, we were not able to meet because everyone would meet except of Italians, which would be fair to Italians, of course.
Yeah.
And now, flights are cancelled. Some countries close their borders, so it's not really possible to get to Brussels. And everyone is now working from at home using like various chatting programs or teleworking and so on. So like Zoom become something which is prevalent in the current Brussels establishment.
Zoom is a dangerous thing. Okay.
Very
Unfortunately, but-
unpirated.
Yeah, on parody. We have a couple of questions in the chat, but I just wanted to again. Sorry, I'm taking more questions.
I have those. I have those questions. I have.
Okay.
I have check on the Twitch chat. So keep talking, Mikuláš.
Okay, yeah, because it's like so. But so how? Because I guess you still have to vote about things, or is a lot of these things kind of pushed up to some further date, or how does that work?
You have to work about things because some things have to be decided on time.
Yeah.
And at this point, as Pirate, I feel really ashamed for the European Parliament because the solution which was deployed was that actually, when there is a vote, the Secretariat of the Parliament sends out an email with a voting ballot. You are supposed to print it, fill it with your with crosses, scan it, and send it back.
Oh.
I'm actually when I heard this for first time, I was really angry because this is the best way how to give an opportunity of the for any sort of hackers or foreign powers to hack your system, and still I'm not really happy about that. However, there was a need to take some decisions like money for the used support had to be approved. Like EU paid a lot of money to really fuel the economies to make them running, and this had to be done. So that's something which happened by email. But to be honest, this is something I will be disappointed until the rest of my life.
Yeah.
I can really understand that. Wow.
Yeah, I feel in often of these cases, and it comes down to Sweden and a lot of countries that we watch. I mean, we try to follow this, that the level of unpreparedness, because you'd think that there has to be a crisis situation mode voting procedure already in place. I mean, I feel like, like with the flu in Sweden, I feel like there should be a flu procedure already in place in the elderly care, Not that I could cover this, but I could, there seems to be a lot of these things that are just kind of missing or perhaps outdated.
Well, at this point, I would tend to vote in person because I think, when you work in a hospital, you cannot provide care to the patients remotely by teleworking. Not work.
No.
And if the medical personnel is supposed to present in the hospitals, I think the parliamentarians should be present in parliaments as well. But I'm disappointed at that point that European Parliament decided not to do that. But logistically, it's quite harsh to do it. And speaking about the remote voting, I would honestly be a little bit concerned about that. Because imagine a situation when some dictator or some prime minister from EU member states somehow manages to collect credentials for that system from his or from the MEPs of this particular state. You have seen that in Hungary, effectively Viktor Orban was able to suppress Hungarian national parliament. I would be a little bit concerned about the possibility that in some member states, prime minister could really get control over the local MEPs and use it in order to have a leverage on the decision-making process. So that's why I'm a little bit reluctant to say, yeah, let's have an electronic voting. I tend to do it in person because this is the only way how to ensure that everything was running properly without being hacked or cheated.
Yeah.
Otto, I'm sure you have some questions.
Another thing about just a short question which I can't really seem to fit in anywhere else. So let's just stick it in here. basic income on a European level? Is that a viable option, and would that help in some way?
I'm not sure whether the basic income, like the regular payments every single month from now, but we are talking about we should have an economic recovery. And right now, there are a lot of people in various professions who are really who have really like drawn their wallets, like really having a problem that they could went bankrupt. I don't know, like for example, the pub keepers, like owners of pubs, that they have a huge problem because they were mostly not able or allowed in some countries to serve their customers. These are not only them, like people who are quite dependent of traveling and tourists, also problem. When we are talking about like how to survive this crisis economically, we should really think about that these people need our support, because when they went bankrupt, it's only like we could we should stop caring, because this will have multiplicative effect. Like if your neighbors went bankrupt, he's no longer a customer for your business. So our business is endangered. So it is also spreading like a disease. At this point, we should really start thinking like we need everyone to be capable to buy food, to buy his or her own flat, and so on and so on. So everyone should have access to some decent amount of money to survive this crisis. Definitely. I'm not sure whether EU will manage to do that, because the European budget is not really big enough for doing that. And we are talking about like, let's get some more resources. We would need this Corona bonds. Otherwise, the resources are simply too small that on the European scale. So, do we want to do that?
Could you talk a bit more about that? You said Corona bonds. What is that?
Well, what you need is sort of like state debt bills, which you usually, or they are usually being issued by all the states all across the world. This time, we should really think about like issuing them on behalf of the EU. That would be the idea what should happen, because like, under current circumstances, some member states, like previously mentioned Italy, if they want to issue bills for their national debt, they will actually face the situation they will not be able to sell the bills. Like simply no one in the market will be interested anymore. The problem is that also the investors, they are afraid to invest in the country is on the verge of bankrupt or under strong pressure. They either require high interest or do not want to invest at all. So I think we really need to find a way to motivate them to invest, or maybe use the European Central Bank to invest into this sort of bills. I would not be opposing that, because right now I think we are facing the biggest economic crisis in the last 100 years. So now is maybe the time to think a little bit differently about the whole
think
thing.
differently. Yeah, because I mean, what you're describing in a way is also that kind of like a system that eats itself. You know, we don't give money to the people that needs to spend the money to keep the system going, because we don't think they will pay back. When in fact, you know, in many ways, by just spending money, that's exactly what they do to the economy. So it's kind of a snake eating itself or something like that, right?
Somehow, but I think you have a lot of not only people but also like smaller companies who are in this situation that they are doing good stuff, I don't know, like imagine a pub. Yeah, that's quite a typical situation. I have seen that. I was in the city today, and no pub at Prague is open. Even if you want to have a coffee, you need to buy it and drink it in front of the coffee shop. What the fuck? And, I'm pretty sure that the people who are selling the coffee are actually doing a business, and under normal circumstances would be quite able to survive. The problem is that you are not able to sell enough coffee. Sooner or later on, they will face the situation they still need to pay their employees, they need to pay electricity, they need to pay rent, and so on. And where to when they have no income? So I think we should think about, like, should we provide them sort of like loans to survive the situation? When we are talking about providing the loans, we are coming back to who shall do it. State needs to take a loan in order to do that for itself. Some member states are able to do that. I think Czechia, for example, is still able to take loans on the market. Some member states will probably have a problem. That's exactly when we are talking about, like.
But there is another thing. I mean, where else can the capital go? I mean, because one of the interesting things, I mean, it was the banks in Sweden here also talking about it. They didn't want 500. What's that like? They didn't want the 50 billion, extra cash from the central bank. I mean, Sweden still is not within the monetary union, because there is a lot of money. And there is a lot of money that needs to be invested as well. So I feel like it's such a kind of an interesting problem to see as well. When you're talking, because you're also talking about, I mean, at some point, as you're saying, people aren't going to have any money. I mean, we're talking about food is going to become an issue. And I'm sure it already is for people who've had, issues, already before. But it risks on being more widespread. And the problem is not actually the money. The problem is somehow, in a way, the distribution of it and how we get it out to the people that need it. Is that kind of correct way to describe it?
Yeah, that's absolutely the problem. And the more you are complicating the distribution, less you distribute, actually. I know in Czechia there were some governmental programs in order to support smaller enterprises. I have spoken with some people who applied for that. They were mostly like busted because you had to fill a lot of papers. At the end, you were still refused and get no money. So it's not really the way how to do that. Like the most simple way is the most efficient. Like you say, everyone gets something.
Yeah.
So you ensure that it actually happens.
Yeah.
I think some countries were more successful. I know that people in Germany were capable to get those loans quite easily. So also part of the future outcome of this crisis, because some countries will be able to save their enterprises, some countries will not be able to manage, and that countries that the unemployment will be even higher.
Cool. To a completely different subject, or back to an old subject, the isolation issue. How do you feel about lobbyism in these isolation days? Has it increased? Has it decreased? Is this situation better for transparency or worse? What do you feel?
Well, I think from the transparency point of view, it's still the same. Like mostly the lobbyists, they operate that way, that they send you an email or call your office in the Brussels in order to get to the meeting. issue. Currently, it works that way that we are unable to meet the lobbyists, which is maybe good, maybe bad, I don't know. Some of them, they are using teleworking. Like I was in contact with some people who are trying to raise awareness regarding fake news, and really it was a discussion over I think Google Hangouts was it this time. This is the way how it currently works, but definitely the amount of meetings decreased significantly. I'm not really sure whether it's good or bad, because like usually lobbyism is being described as something clearly bad. It's that there could be like people who have quite legitimate reasons to ask their politician to do something. And, there is no way how to clearly decide who is good and who is bad. Like, people should be allowed to express their opinions. You should follow it or not. It's always up to you and your conscience.
Otto, are you there?
Yes, yeah, yes. I'm getting questions from all over the place though, so I'm trying to.
I can take one about lobbying that interests me. In the meantime, I'm stealing time.
Of course.
Because I mean, lobbying. I mean, it has to be so that politicians are available both for companies and private, private citizens. Naturally, the problem kind of tends to be like, do you feel like, because obviously some of these bigger organizations, the money they can pour into that, I mean, they can have people employed nonstop just working with trying to push a certain legislation. And as well, as I feel like I've seen, I know that it starts to work in Sweden also, they actually prepare what you can say, prepare what you can print, prepare all of the talking points and stuff like that for you, which obviously the other side has problems with. How do you deal with that when that kind of happens? Because you got to be in situations where you feel like this decision, the no side clearly has no real, support, right? The yes side has a huge level of support. And are there many of these types of situations where you feel like one side really has, really is pushing for something and seems to have a lot of money, and the other side is really, not being able to do that? And how do you think that affects, do you feel like that is, how do you feel that's being handled, if that's a reasonable question?
I think you have always to keep in mind whom you are meeting. I will maybe give an example of how does it work regarding the agricultural subsidies, because I'm very much interested in agricultural subsidies paid by the EU to the member states. I know that in Czechia there are like 6 lobby associations trying to represent the agricultural sector.
Yeah.
5 of them are working mostly in the way that they are representing big companies that remained there after the communist regimes. Like there are like former transformed communist. I don't know. It's in Soviet Russia it was kolkhoz. Yeah. I don't know. There's probably no Swedish equivalent in English. Like something like some companies like that were in Czechia, and they mostly transformed to the current market economy. They are being represented by 5 of that 6 associations. The 6th one is actually the weakest one. However, there are those representing small farmers, or like really like family farms.
Yeah.
So if you want to learn what is actually the need of small farmers, there's another way than just ask those people.
Yeah.
And they will tell you, like, the agricultural sector in Czechia, it's quite like broken in the way that money are being distributed to the biggest companies. Or like mostly like I think some 15% of the companies receive more than like 90% of the funds. It's like there is no support for small farmers.
I mean, which is crazy, because that's often, in many of these cases, because for instance, I make music, and when there was this new laws about, the Article 13 or 17, we're protecting the small people, it's protecting the individual, and it just never kind of feels like that's the way it becomes. But you're essentially saying here, a lot of it has to do about the individual MEP and his or her ability to go out, ask the question, understand the lobby organizations, and really listening and understanding the landscape.
Yeah. Maybe if I may, it's important to understand what is the lobby landscape.
Yeah.
On the other hand, I think the only way how to judge that is full transparency.
Mm.
You should register whom you are meeting. What was the content of the meeting?
Mm.
So people and also like data analysts, journalists, people like that, they can really like clarify who is cooperating with whom. And if you see, I don't know, like this particular guy is constantly being in touch with some big publishers, and same time he is lobbying for strengthening of the copyright. You see, that's the clear, like that they want to get some money for the copyright, and they lobby him to do that. So at the end, we are all living in democracy, and if you see something like that, you should reconcile whether to vote for that guy. That's it.
Yeah, but so are you saying, is it that transparent today? Are everyone required to at least record all of this and keep it publicly?
Well, in the parliament, it is much better than it was in the previous election term, because we actually have a system to include those lobby meetings. So basically, you should see them on the parliament webpage for each single of the MEP. However, there is this other issue, because EU works actually that way that there are two chambers. One chamber is the parliament, and the other is council. And council is a representative of the member states. And that's the shady zone, because while in parliament you are obliged to actually record your meetings, in the council no one cares.
And just to make that clear, and correct me if I'm wrong, because this is something so the council is the one that can propose a new law, and the parliament votes on them.
No. Actually, the commission is the one who's proposing new laws. So actually, like when I say commission, imagine something like government. When I say parliament, imagine parliament. If I say council, it's sort of like Senate or some House of Lords or something like that.
Okay.
The legislative process actually works that way, that whatever you need to have approved, it has to be approved by both parliament and the council. That's how it currently works. The problem is, in parliament you can approve it by simple majority. Council, quite often the decision making is being done unanimously. So you just need one single government in order to block a particular piece of legislation. So you want to fight tax paradises, nice idea, but convince please Luxembourgish or Irish and Cypriotic government, because they will never ever allow it in council. That's how it works. And the problem with the council is that they do not really record their meetings, their activity, and so on. So currently, this is that's the organization which is now full of lobbyists. Like at the beginning of our election term, we started sort of like trip around Brussels with some local guides explaining how the system works. And I remember that this particular thing was explained to us in front of Swedish permanent representation, and they told us, yeah, it's full of lobbyists, but like we can't do anything about it.
Short but to the point then, description. But so in terms of kind of looking at EU from that way, it's important to see see those different parts and see what we could do to them. I mean, is there any way to kind of change that, do you think? Or is it so ingrained now in the system? Because I'd imagine, so the people there, they're put there directly by the governments of the states. They're not really voted in the same way, right?
Yep. They are put by the governments, and they are fulfilling requests of that particular government.
Yeah.
Like, I look on the Czech permanent representation from time to time. I have to admit, and just to briefly describe it, the Prime Minister of Czechia, Andrej Babiš, he is one of the richest businessmen in the country. He actually is even wealthier than Donald Trump.
Oh,
You're breaking up, Mikuláš.
So I will repeat it.
Yeah,
Because
repeat from
that's important. Yeah, the Prime Minister of Czechia, that's a businessman, and his personal wealth is bigger comparing to American president, US one.
Damn.
Yeah, that's it. And this particular guy has a huge share of Czech chemical and agriculture industry. He owns that. Big sort of like agriculture multinational. And quite often when you look on the position of the Czech government respective to, let's say, agriculture subsidies, you see that it clearly subsidizes or supports the bigger agriculture companies rather than the smaller ones. So you see how it this is crystallically clear what's going on there, but it's to a certain degree in most of the countries.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, I want to be clear. We're talking about corruption, and I think it's important to just call it by its name sometimes, and because in many cases it becomes. I feel like it becomes kind of clear, and but so the council, right? Or the commission?
Yeah, the problem is the council currently, and probably there are two ways how to change it. You either need to get much more public attention to what's going on in the council, because people usually do not understand how the EU works.
Yeah.
Like, who is able to explain the difference between the Commission, the Parliament, the Council? No one. Like 99% of the EU citizens are not being properly informed.
No,
either in school nor by the media.
And this is kind of why I also want to talk about it. I know people here in the chat are obviously can explain this so good, and if you want to know more, but it's so good to kind of always go down to these things, because I like I also said, I think there's so much misunderstanding about what EU can do, what they can't do, what budgets they have. What parts does what, and so on, which is obviously, I mean, it is a big problem, but going back to this kind of the quote unquote lobbyism. In this case, it's not lobbyism. I mean, for him, this is direct personal interests that seems to again and again and again favor the laws that are being pushed through to the parliament. If I understand it correctly, right? So
absolutely.
So, I mean, how could we, if we're just like thinking like, how could we help getting kind of cleaning up that mess? What can we do? Is there anything that could be done? I feel like it may be also a part of the fact that the governments didn't want to hand off too much power, right? This is kind of a check for them to always be able to put their own stuff first. In a way, it kind of feels like it to have that sort of extra step.
Yeah, there are definitely initiatives to change it. Like nowadays, we are setting up something which is called European Public Prosecutor, because till now it worked that way that when there was a piece of corruption regarding, for example, regarding European money, there was an Olaf, that's an organization to investigate on, which identified there is a problem. Organization informed the respective member state and asked them to further investigation and criminal prosecution.
Uh,
Usually the outcome was that actually the member states said, okay, we are sorry, we will repay you the money. And that was the end. So no one was prosecuting the criminal offenses.
yeah.
A European public prosecutor is sort of like change of that system, which should improve, because then there should be an independent European body to investigate and prosecute those who are like offending.
Yeah.
Bad part, that's the good part.
But would
Bad
that
part is-
even would that ever reach such a case as you're discussing?
Well, I think so. Like the Prime Minister of Czechia, he was criminally prosecuted. But for some reason, the Czech criminal prosecutor stopped the investigation.
Mm.
By the way, it happened after the justice minister changed. Justice minister from nominated by the same party as the prime minister.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the way how it works, and
Yeah.
that's why we need an independent European body to really investigate on that. The only problem is that some countries are reluctant to join this agreement, and they don't want to have European public prosecutor being active on their territory.
Yeah.
I think Sweden was actually one of them.
It wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, it was together with, I think, Hungary and Poland, which, yeah, like those countries are always talking about, let's say, national sovereignty. National sovereignty in this case means national ability to hide the corruption.
Exactly.
So
we should be free to do our corruption. Let's not go dig in that.
About corruption, how about we talk about Terreg?
Correct. Terror regulation.
Yeah, the terrorist regulation, exactly. A thing with my internet. I gotta restart my router. So can you do without me for 3 minutes?
We'll start. Maybe we could, because I mean, I've read, obviously, me being a part of it.
Right back.
Yeah, we'll talk to you soon. Obviously, not being in here, you hear about it, this terrorist regulation, and I know that the Pirate Party has actually published a lot of good stuff. If you want to read in detail, I'm sure you can find it in our Discord, etc. But just briefly, what is this all about?
Well, I remember that I was reporter on that when I was at the national parliament, and since that time it did some further progress. The general idea is that some guy thought it would be great would he had a way how to remove terrorist content from the internet. Problem is how to find out what is the terrorist content actually, because there can be quite like different definitions. And of course, as there is a lot of content on the internet, there is one single way how to distinguish or how to filter it, and that's the artificial intelligence, because you cannot do it manually. So it escalated to the point that we are, or the EU is trying to set up an apparatus that would be able to, let's say, remove the content cross-border. Because, like, right now, you can quite often see that the content served to one country is being served from a server in the other one. And the actual proposal is, from my point of view, quite too restrictive, quite aggressive. Like, there was originally an idea that police in one member state should be allowed to ask for removal of content or web page in another member state. I imagine that Hungarian policeman has a right to ask take down a Swedish web page just because he or she will have a feeling that this particular web page is promoting some ideas destabilizing Hungary. It's something which is really weird and wrong. And the measures that were proposed were quite like draconian, in a sense that like the web page, the respective web page, should be taken down within quite few hours. So now it is being discussed. I'm happy that my colleagues Patrick Breyer from Germany and Marcel Kolaja from Czechia, they are working on that. They are representing our group in these negotiations. So I hope we will be able to, let's say, mitigate the damages, because this is one of the biggest threats to the freedom of the internet we have faced.
Because I remember, obviously, it's a year ago, we were talking about Article 13 a lot. And, you know, it comes up and goes down, you know, these talks, but that kind of was passed. And so the way to do this again must be through some form of filters, right?
Exactly.
And how is this? Because, I mean, I can imagine, at least in terms of Article 13, where you have copyrighted protected material, I mean, I can imagine that these companies that often own the rights on behalf of independent creators have enough cash and possibility to build those filters. And the benefit of being able to build those filters is that you can charge people to add it to their filter. And then you just try to bring a lot of other stuff down. But I mean, I can see a business model if you're one of these companies. Do you know what I mean? Which is horrible. You know, I'm not trying to say that that's good, but my point is, at least someone would be willing to do it. Who is going to do that? Well, is there going to be a body that is making these sort of technical solutions to be able to kind of clean up internet? Do you know what the thinking is there?
Actually, it's a directive. There is an important difference, because there are directives and regulations when we are talking about European law. And if you have a regulation, it directly applies to the national law without no process in between. When we are talking about a directive, we are talking about like use sort of like framework that has to be later on transferred into national law. So copyright directive generally works that way, that there will be different conditions in different member states. Going back to the copyright directive, there is a part of that controversial Article 13. There was an Article 11 which introduced sort of like link tags. So you are not allowed to really link stuff on the internet. However, there is no this particular article was kind of like regulating the so-called snippets, the, let's say, short pieces of text that are describing the hyperlink in the Google, Facebook, and so on. The problem is that there is no clear definition what actually snippet is. So you can quite easily face the situation that in Sweden, I don't know, the law will prohibit to have shorter or longer text than, let's say, 10 words.
Yes.
And it will be 5 words. No clear definition. So even if you want to run a business within the EU, it's quite complicated, because you have not a single market. You have actually fragmented one.
Yes.
Speaking about the Article 13, it will create a similar situation. However, this was sort of like sorted out by the market. When you look on the artificial intelligence, more or less the market in our times is being dominated by, let's say, 6 or 7 big companies. And when we are talking about those tools to filter, I know that already at the time when the directives was being imposed, Google was actually developing a tool to distinguish the content. So-called content ID. So when we are talking about like who will do that, do not expect the collective societies or the collective right managers that will actually just take Google way to do that for them.
Mm.
And we are all probably expected to provide our data to Google or some of its competitors,
Mm-hmm.
Facebook, Amazon. I don't know, there are some Chinese companies doing that, and they will decide it or not. So I think it will constitute the situation that there will be not a single European body doing that, say, multinationals doing that.
I mean, it's kind of crazy because one of the things that everyone talked about is, we want to give the power back from these huge organizations, right? I mean, that's how that was marketed and going in, but it's related, right? And what you're giving is you're giving them more. I mean,
Exactly.
It's very interesting how our whole infrastructure online is to be controlled by a few corporate bodies, and I mean, I know from working with these sort of stuff that if I want people to listen to my music for free, I have to pay people, right?
Yeah.
Because I mean, this is my music, I own it, but I want them to listen to free. So if I want to be added onto that service where I don't get taken down, I'm gonna eventually have to pay for it. I mean, it's a very very interesting solution. Kind of structure, but Terreg obviously wouldn't kind of. Do you think it would, like, if it comes to, okay, we're talking about you have to take down, because as I understand it, terrorist related or judged material or suspected material within 1 hour. You're kind of again talking about some form of automated system.
I think they went completely crazy because like, how can you distinguish what is the Tarek? Like, I think we as pirates, we know how the artificial intelligence actually works. Like, at the end, it's kind of like seeking for patterns, so related to that could be classified in the way. Like, when we are talking about terrorist content, everyone imagines ISIL or ISIS killing people. Like those videos of masked guys killing innocent prisoners. Hey, that's really bad. I know. However, like, what the artificial intelligence can learn from that, people, you can't see their faces, and there are other people in orange T-shirts. So, like, we expect our artificial intelligence to block every single content. There are people whose face cannot be seen, and people with orange T-shirts, because that will be the result of the automated content filtration. That's where we are heading to, and I'm pretty sure there are quite a lot of legitimate cases when you have an orange T-shirt.
Yeah, or maybe when you wear a mask, you know.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So I think the only thing we are creating by the system is sort of like system creating a lot of false positives to bother users of the internet.
And I mean, kind of also the interesting side of it all that I've heard from, because it's like the same, because in Sweden, porn filters is being discussed for various reasons, which is probably, but I mean, it kind of ties on to this. I mean, these kind of, I'm not sure that particular terror, filters exist, but I mean, this is some service that private companies can provide, even though they do it super shitty today. You know what I mean? Like, it's just really crappy. But sure, you can pay for it. You don't want to use that or see that, or you want to be warned about something. I mean, from protecting private citizens, or say protecting, because there's this. I mean, I don't want my kid to see that. I don't want my, it's kind of that idea that the government should regulate the internet because of the future generations kind of thinking. That also kind of that gets to me a lot, because then you say, well, they're private, but I don't, you say, but it's not expensive, it's cheap. But I'm sure they can get around it. And you say, but any filter, if you know what you're gonna do, I mean, you're gonna get around it. But it's Otto.
Kingland, can you do some moderating in the chat? This guy has said his.
I'm too into.
And I'm gonna do a different approach with Mikuláš. because the Tereg is obviously, for me as a pirate, it's a construct of lobbyists from the same kind of people who brought us Article 11, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, whatever they renamed it. Who are the big companies behind the, or is it countries, or who's behind these the curtains, so to speak?
Well, when we are talking about Terek, I think the problem is worse because we are facing, let's say, a lobby of Ministry of Interiors. Usually, if in each member state they are quite like powerful, and they are always trying to extend their powers to, let's say, control society, observe it, and so on. So I think at this time it is being fueled by them, hoping they will get another toy to play with the citizens. So it's not only just an industrial lobbying. Of course, like when there is a market for artificial intelligence to the internet content,
You're
there are
breaking up.
companies behind.
Hello?
Yeah.
Now we can hear again.
That's great. I was just finishing anyway. Like when there is a market for the artificial intelligence, it is quite oligopolized currently.
Cool. Patrick Breyer makes the argument on his website that it is not democratically legitimate to demand that hosting service providers shall include in their terms and conditions that they will not store terrorist content, as it would not be controlled by the judiciary instead of private companies. Do you agree with this? And if so, could he elaborate on the specific points? Maybe, do you know anything about the statement?
I know about it, and Patrick is fighting very uphill fight here because currently the EU is quite like heading towards more responsibility of the platforms, which means exactly that the providers are supposed to solve issues of someone else on their own costs.
I mean, I gotta say, there's something completely crazy. We are building companies that are becoming a part of our national infrastructure, and that literally becomes too large to fail, and we're propping these companies up to some crazy demand. I mean, for people who like a market economy, I mean, forget about it, because there's only going to be a few really huge ones, much like banks, that just can't go down, because so many people are depending on their infrastructure.
Yes,
I just had to go on a tangent there. Sorry, because I just hearing this makes me a little bit pissed.
I'm absolutely disgusted about it as well, because at the end of the day, I always considered myself to be a proponent of the free market, and this is exactly what we have criticized in the former Eastern Bloc. That the economy is being centralized, like huge state-owned companies. Those companies are not even owned by the state. Like, could the company be owned by the state, you could theoretically influence its policies in the elections. However, we are heading to the situation that those companies will be formally independent of the state. However, in fact, like controlling all policies in particular industrial sectors.
Yeah, and you're just outsourcing politics to huge multinational corporations, which is, there's something absolutely, I mean, it's insane. And why do you think we do it? Is it partly because we just don't understand? Because I feel often when I'm talking to people, specifically older, we had this, well, the police is allowed now to hack into people's phones, given they have some suspicion about what they're doing, hack into their person. So they're giving this. And when they were talking about this, it's like they don't understand listening to what they're talking about. They're saying, well, the police needs more abilities to do things. You say, well, how are they going to do this? Are they going to use Trojans? Are they going to do this? Are they going to buy in, secret, are they going to tell the companies that they've hacked them? Are they going to close the back doors? Are they going to force, and they go, well, no, you're focusing on the wrong thing. The important thing is that it's like they don't understand what they're talking about. That's sometimes the feeling I get. Like they don't understand what they're trying to. I mean, I admire what the idea behind it. It's just that they have no idea of the market. Do you feel like talking to people? Do a lot of, because I would rather that than it's malicious intent, if you know what I'm saying. I'd rather that people don't know what they're doing rather than that they're doing it because they're either corrupt or that they just want that to be the case.
I know there is a rule which sounds like when there are some explanation of particular phenomena, expect the simplest one. The people are simply not informed enough. Like, remember what I've taught you about European Parliament. This whole organization actually has no cloud storage, no setting system. There is even very poor official support for teleworking. You imagine the people in the building to really understand what's going on in the world of digital policies. I think we have shared this video on the European Party Facebook page.
Yeah,
was a guy, a parliamentarian, complaining that there are emails coming to his mailbox. That there was just some mail campaign to him. Marcel was explaining him, because he was chairing at the time, that he can install a spam filter on his mailbox. Problem is that the people are actually not understanding what's going on, and they are just doing some decision, thinking it will be better or worse, but they do not really understand what type of policies they are introducing. That's why we need pirates, because pirates are actually the party that
understands these questions. Yeah,
understands this question. It was founded in order to protect our digital self-determination, our digital being from those tendencies. Because the others, I think most of them, they are not intentionally evil. They are just blind to what's going on.
Yeah. And I mean, just again, going back to like a practical issue, I mean, how many things do you have to vote on a day normally? I mean, I can understand that you need a party line in some cases, and not everyone can understand everything. But I can tell you, I have a friend who works in the Swedish Parliament, and he said when he started, he was shocked how little anyone actually knew about what they're voting for, and how often you just follow party lines, like so yeah, basically, how much information? I mean, if you want to do a good job, how much information do you have to really go through?
Well, it works that way that for each single topic, the topic is being mostly discussed in sort of like committees or like small group of parliamentarians. Like mostly the decisions on behalf of Parliament are being done within a group of, let's say, 20 or 30 MEPs out of like 100. And they just inform their colleagues what they consider from their party point of view to be the best decision. That tackles all issues, because for example, I have absolutely no clue about fisheries. I don't understand the fishery because I'm from landlocked country, and sea is something like I've heard about in fairy tales and movies, but like I don't understand it. So when I'm discussing about fisheries, I mostly rely on the expertise of my colleagues who are in daily touch with that issue. So yeah, this is the way how it works. But usually the party organizations, they have no one or very poor support in the terms of digital policies. when there are parliamentarians responsible for digital policies, quite often they are in good relations with these big multinational companies. For example, we have had quite like discussion about the guy who was later on elected to be commissioner for industry. That's Thierry Breton from France, who worked in company Atos. That's one of the big ones, as one of their managers. These are the background of people who usually do the IT stuff, and quite often it is complicated to those who are in the in the small circle of so-called experts on the topic to do reliable policies. That's why I believe it's important to have at least few pirates to be present in that discussion about digital policies, because small circle, you can really do a lot if you stay behind your principles and follow it.
Yeah, it's I don't know how we actually often come back to that here. I know that we had a long discussion here about something similar going on in Sweden, and someone just summarized everything with like cancel the boomers. That was it. Which I thought was, kind of on point. We don't really think that we talk about it that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's I think there's pretty clear also that there's a generation that just don't understand these things at all. And for some reason, they still feel the needs to make laws about it. And it's generation is very, very, like that. But obviously, there's a lot of people from different age groups, but generally speaking.
It's always quite easy to criticize someone for not using internet for his or her own life when you are so young that you are able to be born into the internet. On the other hand, it's a problem.
I mean, it is a huge issue because our infrastructure today. I mean, just look at this virus situation we're in. Imagine if internet died too. I mean, so much of our infrastructure is built. I mean, all of our payments today are built on this. Almost some of the most vital infrastructure is here right now, already built, and I sometimes, because I want to believe you in that, it's probably stupidity, but it's such dangerous stupidity. I mean, it's incredibly dangerous.
Yeah.
And we have good questions, Otto, right?
No. Yeah, we also have the time issue.
Oh.
We will have to let Mikuláš Peklas leave as well. We have a lot of different questions in the chat. I believe that you and me, Christian, will be staying online, at least for a second, to discuss this some. But Mikuláš has to leave us.
Okay.
So I would like to thank Mikuláš for turning up and talking with us, answering our questions, and I would hope that you would be back in the future. And if not, at least help us with some of your college, because we need some of you guys to help us grow in the international scene of pirates.
Gladly. I will gladly repeat this because I really enjoyed the discussion. And as you said previously, we are one pirate party. We had our own common election program. So what we are talking about is the same all across Europe. So I somehow feel also as a representative of Swedish pirates, and I will be gladly here to inform you, because I always consider it to be my obligation to speak with my voters, and are our voters. Yeah.
Yes, and hopefully I'll also see you next time I come to Brussels. Or we should have been to but I was cancelled.
It got cancelled. Yeah.
Good plan.
Super great to have you. Thank you super much. And we would obviously be so glad to have you back. Anytime. Just talking about this is so important, getting that message out there. And I think also starting to think about our own, building media around this. Because there's a lot of people who are interested and want to know and want to hear. But it's hard to get the word out there. So we hope we can help with that.
Yeah.
I hope so. Like we could try to repeat this project even on the platform of the European Pirate Party. I guess you guys are quite like experienced with that. It'd be great if you could help us with doing it.
Absolutely.
We would love to do something like that, and we should talk more about that during the week. Now that during Corona times, we actually have some time to discuss these things.
Yeah.
So nothing bad that doesn't come with something good.
That's true.
Do you know how to disconnect without and everything?
I guess so. I will just press the button disconnect.
Just
Oh,
press a button. And
thank you.
Take
Super. Thank you so
Take
much.
care.
Yeah.
Stay safe and healthy, guys.
You too.
too, man.
Stay safe.
Bye.
Super.
Perfect.
Var ju fantastiskt det. Och det var synd. Det kom in så många bra frågor här på slutet.
Ja, det
så...
kom jättemånga bra frågor och jag fick inte med mig ens hälften av allt det jag skulle vilja prata om. Alltså, det finns så jävla mycket att prata om.
Ja, och det så bara står jag där och snurrar upp all tiden. Men i alla fall, jag tycker att det är liksom, vi hoppas ju på att kunna få in flera, och som han säger, med lite tur så kanske vi kan sätta upp något som också är mer internationellt, något program. Det kan ju hända att
det har jag ju sagt till dig tidigare kring den, att jag har lite planer på att vi ska börja sända internationellt. Så att det får folk acceptera helt enkelt.
Ja, men för det vore jättekul, och jag tror framförallt vi har ju haft turen och haft med oss, vi har ju pratat inte på lördagarna på just det här programmet där vi går lite kanske djupare mer intervjuformat, men vi har ju haft med Hax och vi har haft med olika människor under programmets gång liksom, som har gett perspektiv på EU som jag också känner att jag verkligen saknar, eller man saknar i Sverige. Vi noterade till att man tog bort EU-flaggan liksom.
Jag har tänkt, alltså så här, vi har fått, jag ska ta och se om inte, antingen så när jag åker själv så får jag filma massa. Eller så får jag se om jag kan lura med det nästa gång vi åker dit.
Ja.
Det är en liten halvcool grej att faktiskt vara i EU-parlamentet. Det är så här, på ett sätt så är det bara ytterligare stor betongbyggnad, men det är någonting i väggarna där som är liksom jävligt magiskt. Men fan. Men en annan sak jag tycker jag vill ändå ta upp med det här med Terreg. För att jag tror inte folk riktigt fattar hur allvarligt det här är. Men Terreg kan alltså innebära att vi kommer behöva alltså identifiera oss med exempelvis bank-ID för att ens logga in på internet. Det är helt sjukt.
Och det som jag tyckte också var lite spännande, nu tittar vi på artikel 13 i efterhand som ett direktiv då som ska anpassas nationellt. Det är ju många av de här grejerna kommer ju inte bli så kännbara för oss. Av den anledningen att de är så dåligt utformade till att börja med. Alltså på många sätt. Och jag tror att man får svårt att driva igenom dem. Just därför att om det är någonting som folk börjar märka av, då kommer ju på många sätt upproret. Jag tror att det måste liksom till att du ska logga in på internet med ditt bank-ID innan du börjar reagera. Men det som jag ser som riktigt läskigt är att man skjuter över det här ansvaret på privata bolag. Därför att är det någonting vi vet att de är duktiga på, är det att få dig att ge upp alla dina rättigheter utan att veta om det. Alltså där har man ju hela den kunskapen i hur embäddar man hela den här skiten. Jag menar, du vet, tänk dig att du får 10 gigabyte lagringsutrymme och x och y z bara du länkar det till ditt bank-ID liksom. Något internationellt bank-ID-system de har byggt. Jag menar, de kan göra det här på ett helt annat sätt. Så om det var liksom en government som gjorde det här, då hade alla fått såna jävla rysningar i ryggraden och ingen hade gjort det. Men av någon anledning idag har vi på något sätt en överlag en mer positiv syn på att de här gigantiska multinationella bolagen, de skulle aldrig göra något ont liksom. De skulle aldrig använda det till att smita från skatter eller hitta på grejer eller liksom sådär. Och jag menar, om något är de ju ännu mindre demokratiska. Jag menar, jag ser inte att staterna inte kan gå snabbt från att vara demokratiska. Men jag menar, du röstar inte fram vem som leder Google. Det är ganska rakt, den som har mest pengar. Liksom. Den som äger mest aktier. Så jag tror att man liksom, när man har de här biaserna som man har, så ska man försöka vända. Tänk om staten gjorde det här. När man har att ett privat bolag får göra det. Eller tvärtom. Om man tycker privata bolag är hemska. För att då tror jag man får en liten... Man kan i alla fall tänka bort om sina egna... sin bias liksom. Jag får rysningar. Just den här får jag också sådana riktiga rysningar av. För det är så mycket här i den här som känns...
Alltså artikel 11, 13, 15, 17.
17,
det var 11, 13, 15, 17. Det var de 4 de bytte mellan. Och grejen är att den var läskig för att liksom den skulle påverka memes och liknande. Och den har den gjort. Vi ser ju YouTube takedowns och liknande alltså mer frequent nu. Och alltså det här är liksom verkligen nästa steg i orwelliansk teori, höll jag på att säga. Det här är alltså... De kommer ta bort möjligheten till deep web.
Ja, alltså... Jag vet inte om man behöver gå så långt. Men man kan bara läsa igenom vad det är man försöker göra. Alltså det är något helt groteskt. Det är ju det som vi pratade om med de här med hacka telefoner. Med allting som man hittar på finns det ju någonting. Och det jag ändå vill säga bara för att få folk att verkligen kanske tänka på artikel 13 också på ett sätt där du ska ha filter då som ska begränsa. Och det här har man liksom inte riktigt införa. Det kommer ta sin tid, det ska ut och det ska in. Och det kommer säkert vara en väldigt mild version av det här som sen hamnar. Men den våta drömmen är ju att man har ett filter som jag som skapare, jag måste köpa för att vara med i det här filtret. Och om jag inte är med i filtret så kan inte du lyssna på mina skapelser gratis. Och det är det här vi sitter och gör den här streamen. Jag är ju livrädd. Tänk om jag lägger in någonting här som är copyright som vi blir nedtagna för direkt. För om det är automatiskt ett filter, då dör ju hela sändningen. Eller i värsta fall klipps ljudet ut mitt i sändningen. Eller bilden klipps ut, eller vad det nu än är. Det är ju fullkomligt livsfarligt för en content-skapare. Och det är också derivativt arbete. Det förstör ju hela commentary-grejen. Jag menar, det är ju det vi gör. Jag menar, när jag hittar länkar till nyheter och vi ska titta på film tillsammans. SVT vågar jag ju använda. Men det är många andra, jag vet ju till exempel de amerikanska mediehusen, använder du deras filmer, då åker du på en stor jävla stämning alltså. Nu är den digital, men du får pröjsa, det är inte demonetiserat, du ska ta ner det, du ska ta bort det och sådana där saker. Speciellt under sådana saker som val i USA är helt groteskt. Alltså visar upp en bild som de har tagit så kan du åka på det. Och det där är ju automatiserat idag på ett helt annat sätt redan. Det är ju på väg. Det är
fan läskigt.
Ja, men tänk dig då, och så har du något företag som tycker att det är det här vi har sett med filmer bland annat. Att du får lämna en review och ha lite filmmaterial, det är okej, men säger du att filmen var dålig, det är då de säger att du har gjort en copyright infringement. Så det händer ju redan idag. Och när det där är automatiserat, då snackar vi ett väldigt begränsat internet i de stora plattformarna.
Alltså, vad menar du med att man redan har BankID för internet idag? Jag skulle inte vilja säga att det finns ingenting som hindrar mig från att gå och köpa en telefon kontant och ett kontantkort kontant och koppla upp mig på ett bibliotek.
Ja.
Så att där skulle jag säga att du har fel. Och det är den möjligheten som inte kommer att gå.
Nåja, jag tänkte väl att vi kan skicka ut en uppmaning till alla som hoppar in i vår Discord. Var med i disken. Har ni spännande ämnen som ni vill att vi tar upp då? Framförallt kanske på lördagarna. Men vi sänder ju varje dag nyheter och så sänder vi postgame ofta där vi spelar spel tillsammans. Så man gärna får vara med. Ikväll ska vi spela, jag tror vi ska spela på Ung Pirats Minecraft-server tillsammans.
Ja.
Jag tror vi ska fortsätta med det. Och så kanske vi spelar lite Jackbox tillsammans också. Vi får väl se om det finns något intresse. Vi har gjort massa t-shirts, för det finns ett spel där man gör t-shirts som jag absolut tycker att Piratpartiet ska börja trycka upp inför nästa val. Framförallt Otto har sådana specifikt bra ritningar och tankar på hur det ska se ut. Så ja, men åtminstone så var med och spela. Och glöm inte så här, följ oss på Twitch. Det är alltså twitch.tv/piratvision/. För det är där vi sänder alla program. Ni som sitter och tittar på Piratpartiets Facebook just nu eller eventuellt Piratpartiets YouTube, ni missar ju då alltså ganska många av de programmen man sänder eller vi sänder. Jag tror till exempel att det blir lite knarktuellt. Vi pratar lite drogpolitik. Och vi kommer prata kryptonyheter. Det är också speciella inslag som vi har. Förutom att vi då bara följer nyheterna 1:00 varje dag. Och sen så på kvällen så kör vi ofta postgame. Så var med! Ju fler desto bättre, och vi växer ju så att säga med er. Det är ju med folks liksom input och folks idéer om vad vi kan utveckla och hur vi gör saker bättre som vi får fram någonting. Vårt mål är ju att växa en fristående mediekanal där vi kan prata om alla de här grejerna tillsammans och göra det mer modernt och mindre, du vet, SVT/Aftonbladet. För vi ska inte heller glömma att även om media i Sverige är relativt bra så ägs de av få människor eller kontrolleras av staten. Och vi behöver fler fristående och progressiva, piratpartistiska röster och tankar och diskussioner om allt ifrån nationalism till socialism, till frihet online, till sådana saker. Så var med! Det gör oss superglada. Och Otto blir naturligtvis extra glad om ni följer på Twitch. För vi är nästan uppe i 500 followers. Och då har vi ett specialavsnitt, Otto.
Ja.
Ska du berätta mer om det? Du har ju planerat det här.
Vilket avsnitt, vad snackar du om?
Ja, alltså 500 follower-avsnittet.
Ja, jag har inte planerat någonting. Det är du som har... alltså, du började prata om en sak. Jag vill påpeka att jag har sagt nej från första sekunden. Du har bara fortsatt. Så att jag vill inte påpeka att det här är min grej.
Lägger långsamt över det här för det. Tanken är i alla fall att vi ska köra yoga i studion. Ha ett litet yogaavsnitt. Det kan vi behöva. Vi är lite stela. Ja, Otto, har du någonting specifikt att tillägga? Har vi någonting att tillägga från chatten kanske?
Att Umeå stadsnät tydligen kräver bank-id för att ansluta mot massiv flytta från Umeå är mitt tips till dig.
Herregud.
I ärlighetens namn, det här är nog första gången jag har sagt det. Om du kan, kom hem. Det låter ju helt sinnesrubbat.
Det här är ju helt stört.
Ansluta med bank. Så riktigt, riktigt vidrigt.
Ja. Ja, fy fan. Ja. Håll koll. Jag hoppas att Discord-länken finns i alla kanaler, men ni kan säkert hitta den. Den borde finnas under allting, så hoppa in där.
Ja, vi kanske ska fira den andra personen någonsin vi har behövt tysta för att de helt enkelt var förstörande.
Ja, vi fick faktiskt, just det. Ja, det lät som personen i fråga var ganska full. Det var så diskussionen började i alla fall. Men det blev lite för mycket postande på en gång och för lite frågor. Men grymt! Du, Otto, ja, de som vill, då ses vi klockan, ska vi säga runt 8 som vanligt, eller?
Ja, det kan vi väl göra.
Ja. Då säger vi runt 8 så kommer vi gå live med postgame, men det kan ni alltså bara se på Twitch.
Helt korrekt, Alden. Jag har mina planer kring 500-avsnittet handlar mer planer om att fly. Så att, ja, jo.
Otto uppmanar ju alltid folk att avfölja, så att vi har haft en sån här liten, vad ska man säga, en liten långsam spikig uppgång kan man säga, så här, lite upp och ner hela tiden. Det kanske inte var det bästa bästa idén. Men nåja. Ja, vi får väl bara tacka allihopa.
Ja, tack så mycket för att ni tittade och tack Mikuláš för att du kom och gick igen. Men tack.
Tack. Ha det bra allihopa och vi ses snart.